I've been thinking recently, what's the best way that I can help people and give back? I've made millions of pounds, but how can I help other people? So I thought, you know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'll go online and I'll find all your questions and comments. So I'm going to answer some of these questions, and hopefully this will help not just the people that ask the question, but many people are thinking the same thing. We got one here that says, would the owner be penalised, owner of a property, if they live in their buy-to-let house and haven't mentioned it to the lender? And will it be possible to change the terms and condition contract? I appreciate your advice. Thank you in advance. Let me talk about that. If you've got a mortgage on a property, the mortgage will have a particular purpose. So it might be a residential mortgage. A residential mortgage is where you buy a house and you borrow money against the house to reside in the house. Or a buy-to-let mortgage, which is where you buy a house to rent it out. Or it might be a holiday-let mortgage. Or it might be a commercial mortgage where you're renting out to a commercial tenancy. The question is, what's the consequences of renting it out? Or if you've got a buy-to-let mortgage living in it, the first thing I'll say is, should you tell your mortgage lender what you're doing? And the answer is yes. If you want to live in a property and it's a buy-to-let mortgage, you should always tell your lender and ask for consent. Will they give consent? Probably yes. You don't necessarily have to refinance and get a whole new mortgage. They will usually give you a letter of consent. I hope that helps. Next question. What we got? This is from Snort Troll. Snort Troll says, what about the company with rent to rents? Does one really need one? That's a great question. Yeah, this really should be done with a company for many, many reasons. I mean, the first reason is from a straight liability perspective. If you're going into a business relationship in a property, there's things that could always go wrong, right? You might end up getting sued. Someone might trip and try and sue you, or you might not be able to pay the rent. And then you have to close down the company. If you've got a limited company, by very definition, it's limited liability, which means that you're personally not responsible. Tax reasons, it makes sense. Also, if you're doing a rent to rent, it's a company let. But if you're doing a commercial tenancy, but just with your individual name, it's not really appropriate or fitting. So I would always encourage a company being set up if you're wanting to do company lets. All right, next. In rent to rent accommodation, who takes care of the repair work in the house? The main landlord or the rent to rent person? That's a great question again. So if you've got a rent to rent on a property, it's all dependent on what is in that commercial lease agreement. So if in the agreement, the contract, you say that you're responsible for all repairs, then it's you. If it's something small, you can literally have in the contract that if there's something that's less than £200, then you will fix it. Anything more than £200 goes to the landlord, and then the landlord will be responsible for paying for it. That's pretty standard. But even Premier Inn, most of their properties are rent to rents. They will have something called a fully repairing and insuring lease, which means that they are responsible for everything. Even if the roof caves in, Premier Inn, as part of their lease, will pay for everything. But probably if you're starting out doing rent to rents, I wouldn't say you're responsible for everything. That would be a bit of a risk. I would put a cap somewhere in it, maybe 200, maybe £500. DDBJ8BY says, what does he mean when he says he bought with cash? If you say you're buying a property with cash, that doesn't mean a suitcase full of money. When you're buying it cash, what that really means is you're not needing a mortgage to buy the property. If you're having to get a mortgage, that's going to take 4-6 weeks. If you're refinancing your house, or if you're getting a mortgage to buy a house, it's generally a bit slower, got mortgage applications, might even be that the lender asks for certain requirements or bails on you. If you're buying cash, i.e. savings in the bank, or even bridging finance. Bridging finance is seen as a cash purchase because bridging finance is very quick. Next, Chocolate Show says, what if your properties have already been purchased in your name? Okay, I guess this is talking about how do you move a property from a personal name owned property to a limited company. There's many advantages to owning buy-to-let properties or property investments in general in a company. Most of those reasons boil down to tax. In other words, if I own a house that's £200,000 house, my mortgage is £150, and every month I'm having to pay £800 interest-only mortgage, if that's my property and I own it in my name, Samuel Leeds, those £800 a month mortgage payments are coming out of my pocket. It's not tax deductible. If the rent's only £1,500 and I'm making £700 gross profit, I can't deduct the mortgage as a tax deductible expense. You're good. Now the question, can you transfer properties from your personal name to a company? And the answer is yes, you can. But in effect, you're having to sell your property to your company, which means you're going to get hit with stamp duty tax, could have capital gains tax issues there. You've got obviously the solicitor's fees. So you got to ask yourself the question, is it really worth it? How much are you actually going to save a month? There are ways, if you own a property with, let's say, your husband or wife, you can argue to the HMRC that this was clearly a business purchase and you own it with a business partner. And there are ways that you can move it to a company without having to pay stamp duty, and you can save on a lot of the costs as well. Those are some questions that I've answered. If you've got more questions, comment below. Also, I wanted to let you guys know about a couple of things I've got upcoming. So I am going to be running a crash course next month, which is basically me in a room for a whole day teaching everything I know about property condensed into a day, where you can come along, meet me, ask questions in person, meet my team. It's going to be an incredible day, and tickets are just £1. And I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can see the different dates and locations where I'm going to be running the crash course, as I'm on tour coming very soon. So I'll leave a link in the description. Get booked on. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you live in person at the Property Investors Crash Course.